It was driven by a belief that they shouldn't be abdicating that responsibility to anybody else. They firmly believed that as parents, their primary responsibility was not only to raise us and nurture us in the admonition of the Lord, but that also meant educating us.
So I invited you on this podcast because not only are you a homeschool mom, but you were a homeschooler yourself.
Yeah.
You are one of those pioneer generations where your parents homeschooled you. And as I've gotten to know you over the years and we've become very dear friends, you, for me, have always been an example of kind of that example, like, this is what I'm trying to raise. Like, Audra is an example of you hear that homeschool works, and we're all just praying that this giant experiment that we're doing works. And I look at you and I'm like, you are a living, breathing example of what homeschooling does academically, spiritually, your family, just the whole bit. And so my hope today is that you can just bring a lot of encouragement to moms as a homeschooled kid on the other side, and also as someone who now is getting ready to launch your own homeschoolers.
Yeah. No, it's kind of odd to be in a position in life where people are looking at me as a prime example of why homeschooling works. But I also firmly believe that homeschooling works, and my life has been, for me, even proof that that is the case.
Right. No pressure, though,
No,
right?
not
That
at all.
everybody's
Everybody's watching me.
as the poster child. But what I am fascinated with about your story is you didn't grow up with what maybe some would say would be everything that a family needs to homeschool perfectly. And that's a little bit what I want you, right? That's what I want you to dive into a little bit today is I just want you to share a little bit about what it was like to be homeschooled when you were a kid, what your parents did that was just so, I mean, really, I'd love to have your parents on because I would love to pick their brains. But you recently did an incredible talk at the Homeschool Idaho Convention, and you kind of went through these different subsets of things that was your experience with homeschooling, these beautiful things. And it was interesting because none of them from the outside would necessarily be beautiful. You had a little bit of a messy, and I mean, you didn't have everything that everybody always thought maybe you would need. And so I just want you to tell us a little bit about what it was like when you were homeschooled way back when.
Way back when. I like to refer to that time as the dark ages of the homeschooling movement, right?
Yes, right.
And the rest of the world knew that as the 1980s. And so back then, there weren't co-ops, there weren't curriculum providers, really. I mean, there was a few providers who had curriculum for private schools that, started allowing homeschoolers to buy their curriculum, but it wasn't really a thing when I was a kid. It was an unusual circumstance for somebody to homeschool.
So what drove your parents, first and foremost, before you get into it? What drove your parents to homeschool you then?
Well, ultimately, it came down to conviction. They firmly believed that as parents, their primary responsibility was not only to raise us and nurture us in the admonition of the Lord, but that also meant educating us at the same time. And so it was driven by a belief that they shouldn't be abdicating that responsibility to anybody else, and that was a call God put on their lives. And so it was a multifaceted. It was more a matter of conviction, because when I was a kid, the public schools weren't kind of off to one side or the other. They were generally teaching the 3 R's. They were still educating kids in a fairly, what we would say, reasonable way. But it was definitely the Lord's call on their life that really pushed them to say, hey, this is something God has given us the desire and responsibility to do.
Right. So it wasn't that they were running from anything. They weren't running from this big, bad, scary public schools. It's that they knew that God put a call on their hearts and their lives.
Right.
And they answered that call.
Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.